And in New York, the jury is hearing testimony now from Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Kerry Morgan, in the Sean Diddy Combs trafficking trial. That's where we're headed. Outside the courthouse is Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft. Before we get to the latest witness, let's start with Dawn Richard. How did that end? Last we checked in with you, Kelly, the gloves were off. The defense was on the attack.
Hey there, Ted and Julia. The gloves definitely were off. And after I did my last hit for Court TV, I made my way back into the federal courthouse. And as I was making my way inside, that's when Dawn was walking outside. So I was very close with her. She was standing there with her counsel. They were walking very slowly and chit-chatting back and forth very softly about her testimony. And as I mentioned, I would not have wanted to be her on the stand, especially under cross-examination. So after my last hit, then we had the redirect. So what they tried to do, what the federal prosecutors tried to do on redirect, is to clean up some of that testimony, talking about exactly what was the context surrounding you, again, reaching out to Sean Combs after you had witnessed several altercations between him and Cassie Ventura. Why were you reaching out? And she was indicating that she was reaching out because a friend of hers, the former member of the band that she was in, that was that Diddy Dirty Money that she was in with Sean Combs, was a trio, and she said her friend had wanted to get that band back together again. So that is why she was reaching out to Sean Combs. So that was kind of how that was handled on the redirect, the recross, back again, asking, so you were afraid for your life, you thought Sean Combs was going to kill you, but yet you continued to reach out to him. She had to say yes.
Riveting time.
Imagine sitting across from your boss at the height of your career and hearing 4 ice-cold words: people can go missing. That is how singer Dawn Richard says Sean Diddy Combs warned her to stay silent. Today we're unpacking Richard's full-length testimony, plus new witness accounts, mansion raid evidence, and the defense's pushback, so you can decide whether the scales of justice are tipping or trembling. Ready? Let's trace every twist of a story that began with platinum hits and spiraled into allegations of violence, intimidation, and secrets hidden behind multi-million-dollar doors. When Dawn Richard first stepped inside the bad boy empire, the scene felt almost mythical. Private jets, red rope parties, and chart-climbing singles. Cassie Ventura, already Diddy's muse, seemed poised to become pop royalty. Richard remembers glittering studios where beats blasted at 3 a.m. and promises of the next big era floated through the air. Yet even in those early days, small warnings flashed. Frantic staff whispering about blow-ups, bodyguards posted at every hallway corner, and studio runners nodding in fearful silence whenever the boss stalked by. Richard says she chalked it up to music industry pressure until one summer festival shattered the illusion and yanked her behind the velvet curtain. But that was only the first crack. The stage for the Central Park charity concert was a sea of cheering fans. Backstage, Richard claims a private argument exploded. She testifies that Diddy's fist connected with Cassie's face so hard, her eye began to swell before the cameras even rolled. Minutes later, both women strode on stage in oversized sunglasses. To the audience, it looked like coordinated fashion flair. Richard insists it was camouflage for fresh bruises and a silent show of solidarity. Crowd energy masked the tension, but Richard's memory fixates on Cassie sobbing in a bathroom stall, whispering, "How did I let this happen?" Richard wanted to call security, or maybe the police, but feared the consequences of crossing a man she now believed could make people disappear. As the applause roared above them, Richard says she told herself it would never get worse. She was wrong, because the next incident unfolded far away from fans, cameras, or public.
He didn't sign an NDA, clearly, but did he make his artists sign NDAs and people that work for him?
Well, a lot of these rappers, a lot of these industry people, anybody who does business nowadays with the internet, they have NDAs, non-disclosure. That means that if you work for them, you around them, you can't disclose any of the information about them. It's the same thing that he gave to all his artists when he gave them their publishing back. I'm gonna give y'all publishing, but y'all can't talk about Janice Combs, Justin Combs, Sony, Bad Boy, or anything that happened. Y'all can't talk about none of that. But there's some artists that didn't say anything, that didn't sign it, and they able to talk about anything they want to. And I think that's those girls that was, I think Danny Kane. I think a couple of them didn't sign it. And boy, oh boy, they probably gonna go after him too. Cause I heard him, and I'm giving you this, Aubrey. He stood up there and he said in front of a lot of people, we were in the studio, and I said something to him and walked out the studio. He said, yo, I'm gonna drug their ass off and pick them out and pip them out to my nigga. He said, I'm gonna drug them out. I'm gonna get them all on drugs, and I'm gonna pimp their ass out to my nigga. I was like, there's somebody kids, and walked out. And it's somebody that heard me. It's somebody that heard me. I mean, well, it's not only somebody that heard me, it's somebody that I know who was in the studio at the time that happened, and I still talk to him today. And we were just talking about that the other day. He done moved back to Indiana. I don't know why. I'm gonna give you that one. He said he drug them all out.
A week later, the entourage piled into a luxury Sprinter van for the overnight haul from New York to Los Angeles. Richard settled into a leather seat beside Cassie, grateful for a moment of rest. Around 2 a.m., she says, tempers flared again. Cassie questioned a last-minute creative change. Diddy, seated 2 rows up, allegedly spun, backhanded her across the mouth, and snarled for her to shut the shuck up. No one intervened. Richard recalls locking eyes with bodyguard D-Rock in the tinted half-darkness. He looked away. The rest of the drive unspooled in tense silence, punctuated only by Cassie's soft sobs and the hum of tires on asphalt. Richard says she spent the hours asking herself, if this is how he treats someone he claims to love, what happens to employees? Daylight finally broke over California, but Richard insists she carried that question like a weight tied to her chest. And back at the mansion, new dangers lurked in plain sight. Inside Diddy's Los Angeles compound, Richard describes mornings that began with fitness trainers and choreographers, and afternoons punctuated by the delivery of what she calls care packages from a fixer nicknamed One Stop. She alleges those packages contained assorted illicit substances, emergency contraception, and, on more than one occasion, cash-wrapped bundles tall enough to need 2 hands. She also claims Diddy rarely moved without a handgun tucked under tailored shirts, and that security staff mirrored the habit, carrying their own sidearms. The atmosphere, Richard testifies, was one of unspoken menace. It crystallized the night Diddy leaned toward her after a tense rehearsal and said almost casually, "People can go missing." Richard calls that the moment her fear outpaced her ambition. Still, she kept singing background vocals, kept posing for press photos, and kept telling herself loyalty might equal protection. But another voice from Cassie's past was about to echo through the courtroom, bolstering Richard's story. Enter Kerry Morgan, Cassie's best friend until she says, "Her boyfriend assaulted me." On the stand, Morgan described visiting the couple's Miami condo in 2013 and hearing guttural, terrifying screams from behind a locked bedroom door. She claims she pounded on it until security hauled her away. Morgan's account added fresh corroboration. She too said she'd seen hidden handguns, witnessed overnight deliveries of party supplies, and spotted Cassie with bruises the shape of fingertips. While Morgan spoke, jurors eyed Richard across the room. 2 voices, 1 chilling narrative. Defense lawyers objected often, calling parts irrelevant, but the judge mostly overruled. The prosecution, sensing momentum, pivoted to the next prong of its case, a tour through the evidence seized at Diddy's luxurious homes. And those photos left jurors audibly gasping.
Bringing him on, the federal prosecutors are bringing him on to kind of show this idea of this continuous cycle of this criminal enterprise and forced labor. He talked about how he would be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and he was just one of the people that had this situation where he'd be going all over the place, have to set up the hotel rooms, and a lot of other people were involved.
Oh, quite a job. Kelly, I could talk to you all day, but I know you need to go back in, hear some more testimony, and come back out with these updates. It's been so great having you be our eyes and ears there. Thank you so much. We'll talk again some more about this case.
The court announced the witness by initials. Gerard Gannon took jurors on a slideshow through Diddy's Star Island mansion. Projected on a screen, designer suitcases packed with aftermarket rifle parts, serial numbers scraped away, boxes of Kevlar vests, shelves stacked with baby oil beside silk restraints, and a handwritten note on a mirror reading simply, "Rule number 1, control." Richard, sitting just feet from the screen, bowed her head as images cycled, mysterious pills labeled "Vital Honey," red lipstick messages on bedroom walls, and receipts for thousands of dollars in same-day cash withdrawals. Prosecutors argued the haul underscored Richard's claims of threats, weapons, and orchestrated fear. Yet in cross-examination, defense counsel counterpunched. "You never reported any of this to authorities before 2024, did you?" Richard conceded she did not, and that opened the door for a direct attack on her credibility. The defense team's strategy was surgical. Isolate every slip in Richard's timeline, every forgotten detail, and every later correction. They spotlighted a government interview from March 18, 2025, where Richard failed to mention the "people go missing" threat. "Memory can be fragile," she admitted, "but fear can make it worse." They produced emails dated 2020 in which Richard politely asked Combs to join a Diddy Dirty Money reunion to make history again. The implication, if she truly feared him, why reach out? Richard's reply, "I was negotiating through a third party and banking on public venues, safety in numbers." Defense counsel hammered financial motives. Richard's solo records never matched earlier chart success. Her lawsuit seeks damages. She answered, "Yes, because therapy, safety plans, and lost wages cost money." Still, the defense planted seeds. Did she reshape memories to fit civil claims? Did fear blur fiction and fact? Jurors took notes, but prosecutors had one last card to play. On redirect, prosecutors slowed the tempo and asked Richard to recount a single incident step by step, the van slap. As she spoke, her voice steadied. First, the crack of skin on skin, then Cassie's gasp, then silence. Her consistency across prior statements, prosecutors argued, lay not in photographic recall, but in core truths that never wavered: violence, intimidation, and control. They reminded jurors that trauma survivors often recall fragments in nonlinear spurts, especially when threats loom. Richard nodded, eyes wet but posture firm. The courtroom hushed. The judge called a recess, letting jurors process competing narratives. But tension still hung in the air as both sides prepared closing moves. During recess interviews with federal agents, Richard maintains she stayed silent for so long because she believed any complaint would be buried by power and money. Only after Cassie filed her civil suit did she feel a crack in the wall of influence, enough daylight to step forward. Her own lawsuit followed weeks later, demanding damages and public accountability. Critics accuse her of chasing a payout. Supporters call her a key witness to systemic abuse. Even in court, that divide is palpable. Some attendees nod in empathy, others whisper about publicity stunts. Richard's final words on the stand summed up her stance. "Money can buy glossy headlines, but it can't erase what I lived." Now the question shifts. Did she persuade the 12 people who matter most? As week 2 closed, prosecutors had introduced physical abuse testimony from Don Richard and Kerry Morgan, photographic evidence from mansion raids, and a menacing 4-word threat. The defense, meanwhile, highlighted evolving memories, an invitation to collaborate again, and possible financial motives. Jurors will soon weigh fear versus incentive, photo evidence versus recollection gaps, and glam industry dreams versus allegations of a nightmare behind the music. One truth is certain, the verdict will ripple far beyond this courtroom, testing how the entertainment world confronts power, silence, and accountability in 2025. So I leave you with a thought. Was this the day the narrative flipped? Or can the defense still turn the tide? Scroll down, share your take, and stay tuned, because the next witness could redraw the battle lines all over again.
Sexual violence. And so you bring in specialists that kind of can talk to people like that and get them to open up about these things and to trust the investigators and trust the prosecutors, that they're just not going to be thrust into a situation. You have to get them to trust you so that if someone does make a threat, even if it's veiled, people can do that on social media now. They can say things that are kind of a little bit wonky sometimes, or these veiled threats. So if the witnesses that you're developing are comfortable enough with you, they will bring those threats to you, or those situations where they might feel threatened. You always have, on the federal level, we have the Witness Protection Program, right, which is run by the U.S. Marshal Service. That's kind of a very extreme step, because that's somebody you change their identity, you move them to another part of the country, they're not allowed any contact with previous people in their lives. So it's the Witness Protection Program is one of the more extreme steps that you take. But there are other steps you can take to ensure the witness that they're not going to be subject to that. If anyone does make a statement that's even considered something like that, you send a team to go out and investigate and to question that person and to get them to maybe make a retraction or to kind of back off a little bit. So you do have to do a good job at making sure the witnesses are comfortable that if anything should happen that they feel uncomfortable about, they bring it to you, and then you have to address it in the ways that are available to you.